tires, okay? Again, I don't care what kind of tire you make. I can make a fancy knobby tire. You can make a racy looking tire. The point is, it is a repetition of a pattern where you can see, take a section of this, flatten it down, and you can see it really is just like this one shape with these pieces extruded out. That's just duplicated, 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 welded together, and then forced into a round. We have a wall, right? Now, we're not making solid tires, okay? We're just going to make hollow polygon tires. And a great way to understand that even is going to what a cross-section really of a tire looks like. So again, if you're going to model it, don't look at it like this, okay? It's too difficult to go through all that. Okay, well, I have so many treads going around divided by into 360. Okay, then I need to have a cylinder or a tube or whatever that's got that many segments. You start to go crazy. But if you think about it as it's just a cross section in this rough shape, really it's only half that, right? So this is basically how we're going to go about doing this. I hit space bar here so I get my 4-panel start. Remember, if you lose this, wherever you're in, is just a space bar, or you can always go to panels, layouts, 4 panes. That takes you, resets back to a top, perspective, front, and side. Now, without having to physically go in and type in, and finding a car tire to base it on, like, oh, I need a reference there. No, I don't want us to beat ourselves up trying to make it look exactly like a car tire here based on a reference. I don't want us to do that. We might want to do that playing around with a rim or something. But it does help to figure out what panel you're going to model it. I didn't mention this yet, but believe it or not, the forward world in Maya is positive X, which drives me insane because if you look at front view, X is going that way. Okay, side view, X is going back. Positive X is the positive direction. Now, does that really matter that much at this point in modeling? No. It does matter when we're talking about the rigs we dealt with in Project 1. If you have noticed, they either were facing positive or negative X. If we're doing dynamics and simulation, special effects, particles, all that other stuff, they always have to face positive X. What you see here would actually be facing that way. But because we're just doing this for the sake of it, I'm not going to worry so much about that because we can always remember that clear transformations that zeroes everything out so we could readjust it later on. But I do want some kind of reference. Not necessarily a rig, not necessarily a reference plane like we did with last week, but I just want something to justify size. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a cylinder. Okay. And I'm just going to make that cylinder. Kind of think of this as a dummy rim right now to work with. And whether it be the front or the side, maybe I'll go, since I'm going side here, I'll rotate it this way and go with a positive 90. So you can see that this is where our tire is going to be. Now, yeah, well, you know what? We move it so it's up off the axes here, right? A little bit, so I'm not exactly at origin. See that? And that's just going to be our guide, all right? It's no different than, if I was trying to model something that had to have something fit inside, okay? This is just going to be a placeholder. It's just going to be like, hey, I'm going to eventually make my tire go around this cylinder, but I'm going to use this as just a guide. And it's on the axes here properly. Once you make a simple little tire, doesn't matter much about size, big, large, or otherwise, they're all going to be different here. I can basically go layers and create a layer from selected and hit reference or even template. Okay? You understand? We're just using this as something to focus on where our tire will go. That's it. And another major reason why we do this, which I do in a lot of software, I do with especially if I'm freehanding or using Adobe Illustrator. You can never trust your monitor. Ever have your monitor have too much squeeze to it? It's stretching too much and all your circles look like little eggs. You're like, I don't understand. And then you compensate to make it look like it's a circle, and then you animate it and it's got a wobble to it. It's because the screen is stretching somehow. So it doesn't look perfectly round. So you eyeball it and you end up not making it perfectly round. So all I've done here again is just put a cylinder in there just to kind of be a reference. And I've locked it, or not locked it, but templated it. You can see when it's template, it's like it's frozen or reference. Because I've done that, I got to make a new layer now. Create an empty layer. Okay, and I'm going to double click it. And I'm actually going to make my empty layer be gray. And I will call this the tire layer. And I'm making it gray so we can see the wireframe. Because by the time you saw those examples from students, by the time we actually get like a black texture shader, we might be able to necessarily see all the details. So I want the detail, any of the edges to come up as gray. So look at our, like I said, this is why I provide that PDF. Because even though I'm making a video right now, this PDF has literally got to a point right here where you can create a cylinder in our front viewport. This is something we use as a placeholder to represent the rim, right? Now, we're going to create a small cube and align it so that it sits atop the cylinder, much like that. All right? So even though last week we worked with cubes, this week we're going to use a cube. But remember, that cube will eventually be altered. It'll be, deformed to actually be just a half of a sliver of that tire. Now this cube, it basically says here, I make it 5 by 5 by 5. Doesn't have to necessarily be that, but let's go ahead and do it. And so again, I make a cube. I'm going to make it 5 by 5 by 5 segmentation. Move it up to atop my tire. Like so. Right. So I made my cylinder, I put it in its own layer and templated it so I could use it. Okay. I then made a cube, made it be 5 by 5 by 5 subdivision width, height, and depth. And I placed it so it more or less is sitting right above that rim, right? All right, so you see, I moved up there. Now you see what we're going to do here. Right click on the cube, choose faces, and delete the sides, bottom, and back of the cube so that only the front side, right, and the top remain. The front and the top remain. Okay, now, so you see, I'm using my front view. I drew a box around all those faces to hollow out that cube and get rid of the bottom. And then I'm going to come over here to my perspective view and remove all the backside here. Look at, I'm just drawing a box around them. So I end up with this weird, again, why didn't I just make this shape to begin with? Well, because I'm showing you easier shortcut ways. Yeah, I used a cube to get to this, but it was almost easier to use that cube to get to this level than to just model that out. Okay, so you see what we've got. We've just got this little like that. All right, so right now as it stands, this little guy right here, right, will work, okay? Bottom back, switch to the side view and right click on the cube and choose vertex. So now we're going to the side view here, right? I guess that's front. Yeah, I just got some confusion. Don't worry about front side. Good point. It doesn't really matter at this point. Okay. And I want to right click and choose vertex. Thing is here, if you select it all, if you hit F, it frames your selection. If you hit A, it frames all. F and A. Okay. Now, you can see now that our rim, right, we're making only half the little patch of tire here, which will eventually mirror to the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this side, minimize it, and just shove it over a little bit, because what I'm trying to do here is just get this to be aligned to that axis. See that? Very simple. We're now going to shape the geometry so that it begins to take the shape of a half a car tire profile. What the heck does that mean?
Get the top portion to have move without like coming out from the top. Because instead of like shrinking,
I selected only these to the right, not that one.
Yeah.
And using scale, I was able to scale only those. Okay? And then I just nudged that one in the middle so that it was right there, right on that axis. It could be a little bit over, right? Because we're going to weld it anyways. Be just a little bit over. So I kind of like think about when we did half the chair. Now, again, you could do it this way too. Like I said, it's not really that important. See, I could basically say, hey, I started like this over here. You know, you could basically say, okay, well, you know what? Let's move this one over. Let's move this one over. See, all I'm doing is just trying to nudge these so that my last vertices hit that center axis, something like that. Okay, that's it. That's all I'm trying to do is just get these to be that half. But remember too, this is now where we're thinking in terms of a shape of a tire. Now I know that doesn't look like a cross section of a tire, but it is. So all we're now doing is this was what goes into the rim, right? Snaps into the rim. So if we look at this, see, this kind of shape, or I could simply say, okay, well, this is going to go under, over, down, right? Oops, don't do, see what I just did there? I clicked it and I didn't put a box around it. Careful.
It's not working.
I just got my son assignment, so. I don't
Okay, I'm just trying to shape this, because I know a car tire is round, right? Remember, we're working like at the walls of this. So all I've done is just shape this so that it's a little bit more of a round shape. Remember, at the other side, when we mirror this, it's going to come around here and go like that. Let me change you a perspective view so you can get a better appreciation for what this shape looks like. Okay. In fact, this makes me want to just skate. Oops. I'm just going to take this and scale it in a little bit like that. See that? It's just a half of a patch. Some people have said, can you use a cylinder instead of a cube? Well, sure, as long as I delete the front, the back, and that half, this could be a small section of a cylinder, right? It could be. Cylinder that's 5 segments high. So I could have used a cylinder. I could have started with just a section and then just brought it in like that. Yeah. Now, if you have extra edges, that just means you can have more complex treads. That's all. I mean, the tires themselves, we're over modeling the amount of detail because they've got little treads to them, right? That is geometry. You have to model that out. Now, again, if you are doing a game vehicle or something like that, you could probably like Grand Theft Auto, you could probably get away with just using a texture. But we're modeling the detail for the treads because that's why we have more edges up here necessarily than down here, because we're going to be doing some zigzags and some extrusions and things like that. All right. Now let's say you want to do a little bit of what I say before, like a white wall. Okay, watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to switch to faces. Okay, and I'm going to go right, and I'm going to, I guess I can do it here. Okay, see what I just did there? I just selected those faces right there. And I'm just going to do a very tiny extrude. One extrude and a little bit outward. Okay, we should zoom in to show you what I just did. See that? A tiny extrude outward. See that? What did I do when I did that though? By doing that tiny extrude outward and just doing a little bit of an extrude, I have created edges that are close together. When edges close together, you get a little more sharper edge. Problem, of course, is by extruding is it gave me an edge in the empty face. Does that make sense? Where I don't want an empty face there because I'm going to be copying and I need to weld them together. So I need that to be open. So I'm just going to select that little edge that I extruded out there and remove it by deleting. Like that. Okay. Other side here. Select that little edge and delete it. So you see that little bit more of an edge. Okay. See, did I actually go faster? No, I didn't actually have that on this one. All right. So now we're going to go into and we're going to try to shape some treads. Right? Now, according to the PDF, it says shaping the treads. In the top viewport, select the first, third, and fifth row of vertices and translate as shown. Let's see if this can do it here. Spacebar. Okay. And I'm going to go to vertices, or I could have gone to edges, right? First, third, fifth row. So watch what I do. Okay, I'm in vertices here. I'm going to select the first, hold the shift, the third, and the fifth. Now, you may not have the same fifth, first, third. You can select and make these treads any way you choose. Okay, if you want to make big old square knobbies like you'd have on an off-road vehicle, right? Like an old, radio control or tractor tire, you can do that. But I just selected every other thread. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to zigzag, right? I just drew a box around the first group, third group, and the fifth group, and I just slid them a little bit. Not a lot, just a little bit.
I don't remember if you said you could, but is there a way to add a little vertice? Because I want to try to make hearts.
Hearts? Well, yes. In fact, let's go ahead. Watch this now. Okay, I'm still in the top-down view. I'm going to zoom in here. Watch what neat this is. Okay, let me just turn that off. Watch what. Now, I could also do an edge. Watch this. Double click. How do we split an edge? We bevel it. See? And I could do it this way. Just maybe I'll make it very narrow. Think of a car tire where you have that little strip where the rain goes through, right? Or, watch this. I'm going to go to Mesh Tools, Multi-Cut. Okay? And watch this now. Cut, 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 cut. The problem with this is if I cut here, how is it going to weld to the other side? See that? Because I need to have one here, because this is going to end up being welded and glued to a copy with that there. That's what I'm talking about. So you'd be better off doing this way. Just going straight down with the cut. I'll use this grid to do it. Okay. And then going back, see, and moving it like so. I need to have whatever this profile is on this side where vertexes are located. See that? Has to match to that other side. Because if this is here and this one is not there, how, see, I'm almost looking there. This almost needs to be moved over just a smidge. See? Because it needs, this is going to end up welding to the duplicate of that one. So you must have these edges be duplicates of each other, or, you know, have the same location of vertices. Because if this, if I end up were to put that one over there, this will not weld. It'll be too far apart. Make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to guess and eyeball it about there.
So as long as.
It'll let me know if it doesn't weld properly.
As long as they're pretty close, it'll still.
Yeah, well, as long as the distance between this vertice and that vertice, when they're duplicated over next to each other,
Yeah.
as long as it's less than this distance here. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, I could very well have done that for the fact, okay, and kept it very simple, just focused on the tread right now and duplicates, and then done that wall or whatever, white wall later. But I'm actually going to show you how we can actually work smarter on this as well. See what this looks like from a perspective. That doesn't have to look like. Just showing you all the variety we have here. Because next we're going to move into a face mode. Now, face mode, just like we did with the white wall, just popping it up a little bit. This is where we can say, hey, tread need to stick up or go down or get beveled in the center. Okay, so I'm going to just pick a spot here. Let's start with, you know, these treads going down. Okay, I'm just going to start with one here. One row of treads. Okay, and this whole row of treads here, hold shift. And maybe I'll go with this side too, just to. And maybe I'll go with these, every other one here and every other one there. Okay, do you get what I'm doing? These are the treads for the tires. I'm then going to extrude it. Just like that. Tires coming out now. Just like that. Now, maybe you want to make it a little more knobby, you can give it a little more thickness, height, or whatever. It really doesn't matter. What do we have to do on the edge that will eventually be welded? Once we do that, we need to come in here and remove these faces because they must be hollow, right? It's like if I was to model a character and model an arm and then model the character, if I don't have a hole on my shoulder and a hole at the end of the arm, it's not going to weld. So I have to remove these ends here. That guy, that guy, that guy, and then the others on the other side to make an open. Okay? So I'm just going to select those, delete, delete. Down to the other side there, delete. See that? Funky little car tire tread. Let's have more fun just to show you some of the things we can do with this. Okay? How to do it, just showing the potential here. What if I want to put another little bit of detail inside this little piece, these two little treads here? Well, I know I can extrude it up. What if I actually extruded it? Okay, so I'm gonna do an extrude just like I did before, but watch what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do extrude, but I'm not going to use the tools it gave me. I'm gonna go switch to just the R so that I can make these be. See? Oh, that didn't work very well because now they're working in what's called unity. I want them to work individually. So what I can do now, extrude. I'm going to use the scale key to scale them individually. See that? See what I just did with that? I basically extruded them, but I didn't extrude them out. I just scaled them. Now I can hit the G key, which is repeat last step, and extrude them inward. You see just that little bit of detail I just put inside those little tiny treads. See that? Now, a lot of students will say, okay, well, this is great, but what's going to happen when you actually put this all together and it gets smoother? How can I see if this will look like if I put a smoother on it? We don't really want to put a smoother on a hard tire because it will lose all of our edges, right? Because we're keeping it very low polygon right now. Remember, if you want sharp corners, you got to have doubled up. So watch what happens if I just hit 3 on the keyboard just to see a temporary smooth. See? Looks awful. See? Doesn't look like a car tire at all. Looks like a, I don't know. I guess it could look like a BMX tire. I don't know. So just be wary here. We're not making hard surface, smooth hard surface, sharp corner kind of geometry. We're keeping it lightweight and simple because these tires will be heavy. They are going to be very high polygon because we're modeling the treads physically, not just the texture. So just try and get, again, there's no right, no wrong necessarily here. Just try to get some geometry. All right. Now I hit Control S and it asks me to save. I want to do that just in case. Make sure it goes to the right folder. You'll know it goes to the right folder when you go to your scenes. And there it is right there. I just call mine, like I say, car tire A. It's nice to save in generations in case you need to go back. Not to mention, if we actually saved this before we started messing with the tread, we could have called it car tire starter. Every time we need to model a car tire in the future, we could have started with this. All right. And again, you can see my little PDFs kind of talking about how to do it, right? Now it says here, do not translate these yet. Use the scale tool and scale these only slowly again. Use this measure. Okay. Mirroring the other half. Now, I can mirror the other half right now and get the other side. But I'm going to show you, again, what a lot of students or a lot of people kind of battle with is they sit there and they model and they model and they model, they get it completed, and then they're like, oh, now I need to texture this. I need to put some shaders on or something like that. And they have to go back with their little polygon tool and select all the polys that need to be black, all the polys that need to be white, all the polys that need to be whatever color. But why would I do that when I'm done? When I'm about to take this, mirror it to the other side, make 20 copies of it, weld it all together, and bend it into shape. Why not put the textures on it now, right? When there's only like a handful of polys to choose from. So let's have some fun with this now, and let's just create some simple shaders. Remember, it's all part of this class is the learning the basics of Maya, right? So how do I get a hold of the basic shaders? Well, that's Windows, Rendering Editors, Hypershade. As we went over the last few weeks, we're going to use simple colored shaders, just like we did with the little battle bots, the little primitive man, in the sense that we are not going to use like a Lambert because of, these defaults. These defaults never get touched. I can go with a blend. I could go with a Fong. You just simply can see here that don't go with crazy ones. You don't know what they are, but you can see that the blend and the Fong do give us just a little bit more like shine, shimmer, reflection, stuff like that. And so, I don't know, maybe I'll go with a blend So I added a blend and a thong, and maybe I'll make my blend be the black rubber, right? That look like black rubber? Sure. And I could give it a name and call it hard tie, right? I'm gonna go with the thong here. Maybe I'll make the thong be white to represent the white walled rubber, right? The white part.
Gold one, if we wanted to.
Yeah. Well, the dollar, the turning down the shine and the hot spot is here in specular color, see? Or cosine specular power, turning or increasing reflectivity, ambient color, incandescent, diffuse, will turn it down, see? So maybe I want my white wall to have a little bit more of a glowing quality so I can boost my diffuse. I'm making the, I'm not making, I'm not gonna make this car tire look like it's just been, sent off to the detailer and you can see the reflection of it. I'm just gonna make it be black rubber, white rubber. Right? And the easiest way then is think about putting on value. Okay, watch this. Or not harder. Okay. Now, this little strip here is going to be my white wall, right? So I'm just going to select the face here. Now, did I get the edge there as well? No. Watch how neat this is. If I want this to include this tiny little edge on the top and the tiny little edge on the bottom, watch this. Select, grow. See now it has grown to include the next step. Right click on my white. Assign material to selection. But I'm not going to do anything right now other than, watch this, select inverse. Now I've selected everything but that white strip, and I'm now going to go to my black rubber and assign it. See? Harder, not harder. So I end up with this tiny little, or this example here, right? See it? In fact, I'm looking at this and I'm almost saying to myself, yeah, you know what? White wall needs to be a little bit smaller.
Just exit, right?
Yeah. I'm done. That's it. I'm just showing you that it's a lot easier to texture it at, I've only got 5, 6 polygons to choose.
Yeah.
And I've done this before, like, again, if I'm gonna model, this room, and it's, I already know that this is the same wall color and everything here, that's gonna go all the way around with this black trim and whatever. Might as well do it in a small section before I duplicate and make a bunch of it.
Before, okay, never mind.
Okay. All right. Watch this now.
And then you said when extruding, you have to make sure to delete the face.
Anything that is facing the left edge or the right edge. If it's here in the middle, see it like this here, I don't need to delete these that are going to be, because this edge is going to be welding onto this edge eventually.
Yeah.
That face, right?
Yes.
Select that face. I can do an extrude, but I'm going to do extrude with a little scale, like using these tools, see? And then extrude and push it in. Okay. It's very much the same. Just a not regular, it's got a little bit more different shape.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. All right. So we got our quarter piece, right? Just a quarter. Now we need to make it the half. It's a half quarter. I guess it's a half. It's a 15th. I don't know. But we need, this is just the one side. So we know already, how do we actually get this to the other side to weld? Mirroring, that's right, and finding the correct axes. Now, I'm going to use, I guess I could use perspective, because what's neat about this, especially if I choose my selection tool, or if I were to use the front view, here's a great example of what, remember we had this problem with the chair, Remember, we had to hit insert to move the axis point at the axis because it was over here in the center. Remember that? By holding insert, moving, and then hit it insert again. But we don't have to do that here now. Actually, what this is telling me is, what the heck is that right there? You see that? That edge. That doesn't need to be there, does it? Oops. You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
The little line coming down.
Full edge. Okay, what I'm gonna do?
What if you have one, but it's kind of like slanted, so it's not like a straight down edge, but it's adding another curve into it.
I'm gonna do that. I'm just gonna add a bevel, small bevel.
As
Yeah.
long as it isn't like straight down, it should be.
Yeah, that way it's like a, I mean, it's still part of the design of the.
I just did that. You can see the detail now of what I've just done. See?
Yeah.
I just made it so it isn't just flush and flat there. Okay?
It'll create like a groove.
Yeah, create a little groove down the center of my tire. All right. So now I need to mirror it. Now, remember what we're dealing with, the X, the Y, and the Z. Positive X, positive Y. Positive X is that way. See the red arrow? Positive X. That's negative X. So when we go to mirror, what axes do we want to mirror it on? Positive X. So I need to flip it on that side. So mirror, which is under what? Mesh, mirror, option box. Now, if I don't have to hit the option box because it's going to give me a little pop-up gizmo anyways, but at least here I can see mirror axes X, geometry type, copy. What's the difference of these? Copies, instance, do you know what? It's like clone is often called an instance, meaning it's a duplicate of the original, but any changes you make to the original affects all the duplicates. Those are clones or instances. So if I basically wanted to have, I don't know, a character shooting a gun that shoots 1,000 of these tires, bang, 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 I only really want one tire model. All the tires shooting out of there are instances, or clones, okay? So I want to copy mirror axis position, world, X position, offset value. Now that gives me the ability of moving it a little bit over or not, but that should pop up also when I do this. Merge border vertices, let's say merge, okay? And you see it does a pretty good job. Look how it is even dead center. See that? And it has brought it over. Now, this offset value, you see, allows me to adjust if I need to. See, so I can even do this. I can merge it and say, hey, yeah, merge like that short. But no, I want to merge right on that value, which for me is 0. It might need to be a slight value there in the offset. Offset is there in case you don't use that insert key and move your axes to the right. You could do it with the offset. Just to get a little bit more of that jaggy jag. And remember, when we weld these pieces, because right now it automatically welds that center seam for me. So I don't have to worry about that one. But okay, let me go ahead and select what I've got. You see, it did weld down the middle. In fact, ooh, okay, it didn't really give me a good weld down there, did it? See how I pinched it right there? So let me see here. 0.1.
Oh, is it because it's just slightly over the middle axis?
So 0.1 is too much. 0.05. 0.11. See that? It's just a little bit off there. Not going to be a big deal because it'll still weld properly. It just, I didn't really want it to be, oh, here, merge threshold. There we go. See that? This merge threshold here was at a value that was too high. Maybe that needs to be 0.12 or something. 0.05, there we go, 0.05. See, and that now gave me the proper merge there. So right now, we've got our little sliver of tread, right? Now, if I were to actually go to our PDF, you can see here, like I say, just like I showed you, our PDF, we just got to the point here that we neared the other half, right? Now we're going to create a strip of tread, but before we do that, there's a process here of cleaning up all the trash because we did a lot of stuff to get to this point. One is, of course, delete by type in history. That zeroes it out as far as all those things we've done. And the other is to freeze the transformations. Well, delete by type history. Look at here. Inputs. These are all these inputs we did to get to this point. So how do we get rid of that? Well, we edit. Delete by type history, or Alt-Shift-D, and watch all those inputs on the right get taken away. See? So now it's all zeroed out to the point that we have no more inputs, we just have this. The other problem we have is we have all these modifications, okay? And it's much easier to get all this back to zero. Zero translate, zero rotate, zero scale. To do that, we do what's called freeze transformations. Modify, freeze transformations. And you see now we're zeroed out. So now it's basically treating this like a brand new primitive that hasn't been moved, that hasn't been rotated, hasn't been scaled. And that's really important now because in case we accidentally move this, scale this, rotate this, it'll let us know. And all we need to do is 0 and 1s, right? But now what we need to do is we need to make duplicates of this. So what it says here, right? Now we're going to select the tread geometry and Control D to duplicate it. But just wait, because we're going to translate the copy. We're going to move it along that axis so that the space for the seam between the one and another is almost barely visible. But we're not going to just live with it. So watch what I'm going to do. Okay. So Control D or duplicate. Watch what I'm going to do. Duplicate it. And I'm going to move this until it is really close as can be. I might need to zoom in here. See? Until that difference between the original and the duplicate, see, is pretty much right on top of itself. About like that. Okay? Now, what was the distance I did? Look here. It was 1.664 for me. Yours might be different. But you see that translate Z was 1.664. Now, yours, whatever your amount was to get to there, remember. Okay, now I could even get, you can see how these are, see there's just a little bit of overlap there. I could probably go in there and say maybe 1.66. Let's try that, 1.66.
So it shouldn't overlap, but it should be as close as possible.
Or yeah, 1.666. How about that? 1.6. 1.666. Yeah, see how that seam now, that difference between the original and the new one is pretty much spot on mine. Your numbers will be different because we all made them different. But I'm just going to remember that translate value of 1 point, whatever it is, or your value. Okay, so you might want to pencil or run it down or copy it or something like that, because we're going to use now an easy duplicate button, kind of like what we did before. Okay, so I'm going to take that what I duplicate I just did there, delete it. Right? Just watch what I'm going to do now. Mine was translate Z and the value. I'm going to use a different duplicate. I'm going to edit, duplicate special. That didn't do right. Hold on. I meant to hit option box. Edit, duplicate special, option box. Edit, reset. Translate Z. What was my value? My value, 1.666, I believe. And number of copies. 12. I think in the PDF, I said 24. Maybe I'll go in between there. Maybe I'll say something like 16. It could be 8. It could be 5. I don't know. What this is going to do with this duplicate special option, right, is it's going to make 16 copies of that. Each one translated 1.666 in the Z. See? And look what it gave me now. It gave me, oh boy, a big long strip of car tire. See that? It gave me 16 duplicates, exactly 1.66 value translated in Z. Doesn't that seem easier? I just duplicate, move, duplicate, move, duplicate, move. But that's why I did that one duplicate just to get that value, but that's also why I zeroed everything out. So I knew everything was at 0 to begin with. And now you see I've got all my duplicates, right? I should be able to put a box around all of them and good old mesh combine. Now, the problem, of course, is these are not welded together. They're combined, but they're in pieces, right? That seam is still not merged between each duplicate. But because I knew that that seam was so small that I can actually, at this point, go to vertex, put a box around everything here. I'm going to zoom in and try to find the seam. I doubt I'll find one here because I knew it was very, very close. See, I can't even see a seam. So I'm just going to back one out. That 1.66 for me was a very, very, very narrow. Every vertex selected now. I can now go up to my edit mesh, and merge. Now, if you zoom in and you still see a gaping seam between these, that's that threshold of how much further, how much distance do I need to do it to make it go and weld together. So this is one of those things. Now, I knew I put those seams of the duplicates right on top of each other. They were closer together, so there was a vertex on top of a vertex as close as possible. But if you actually are to zoom in and you still see a gap between each duplicate, you might want to adjust that 0.02, 0.03, okay? Until they, I mean, I basically might even want to do this just to make sure. Zoom in here. Find the narrowest section. Most those are. And maybe just give this a little bit up. See, now 0.11 was too much. Maybe go with 0.02. See how it's still, it's welding what I want to weld, but not welding what I don't want it to weld. Does that make sense? Because I'm giving it a value so that I'm making sure that any vertices that I want to weld together or merge together are close enough so I can increase that threshold, but I don't want to weld these together, right? Or else that defeats the purpose of even doing it. So you get to a point eventually where you've got your long strip of tire. What can we do at this point, obviously? Hey, we got to this level. Edit, delete by type history to get rid of the merge values, right? To zero all that out. So now it's being treated like a new primitive. It's our little PDF saying now, okay? Control D, duplicate special, the number of duplicates I said 24 here. Okay, D, mesh combine, select the vertices, merge, poly merge for, all right. Bending the tire. Now that we've got this strip of tread, okay, we're going to learn that there are a lot of other tools that can help us model and modify, besides just pulling polygons and vertices around, right? For example, this is a strip of car tire that I now want to bend into a circle. Well, those are modifiers. And to get to those modifiers, we actually have to swap out of modeling menu set for a second, okay? Because we see here, we've been in modeling. Now, I could come over here to the animation, you see, and they've got some animation settings here. You know, let's see here, rendering animation, don't have it here. All right. So I'm going to switch from modeling to animation. Modeling to animation in the menu set, see? And I think it's F1 to F2, F3, F4, those jump around from menu to menu as well. But I simply just changed the menu set to modeling, which gives me a whole bunch of different settings at the top. And I'm going to choose from the top there, deform. Okay. So I'm going to go animation menu set with the tire tread selected, deform. And we're looking for what are called the nonlinear modifiers, nonlinear deformers, rather. You see, we have bend, flare, sine, squash, twist, and wave. So imagine if you ever model something, I don't know, maybe you modeled a car and you're going to make it look like it's wrapped around a car tree. You can use some of these modifiers and it will modify the entire geometry. When we get to the comfy couch, maybe instead of a single couch, that's just a boring square couch or rectangular couch, you want to make it look like I'm half moon. Or maybe you want to turn it into one of those corners, right? You can use these and it'll do the same thing, okay? You can actually use mirror and do that. So you take the couch and you mirror it so that it's actually duplicating on a 45 or a 90 rather, and it will weld the seams and you now can get a corner couch. You can take a table like this, right? Mirror it and bend it and turn it into a half, you know, a semicircle. Okay, all these are cool. We're going to use the bend. And you see, when I apply that bend deformer, it actually shows up, see, as a vertical up and down bend deformer. Now, in order to understand what the hell this bend is doing, I'm going to open up the word input bend and give it some curvature. Okay. And we're eventually going to do a 360, but I'm just going to start with a value on the curvature of something like 90. And you can see the reference of the bend, right, of what it's doing. But what's the problem with the bend? It's not affecting our tire at all. That is because the axis of the bend is doing this way. Does that make sense? So watch carefully what I need to do using nice round numbers, right, of the bend. I'm going to rotate it so I can then type in the value, which for me was -90. And then I'm also going to rotate it this way, which is my X, until it says -90. So you see now the tire is bending along that deformer, right? That curve of the bend it gave me is now curving the tire. See that? But I had to rotate that bend because the bend by default was on the wrong axis. So I had to rotate it 90 or -90 and -90 to start to look like how I wanted it to go. This is kind of cool. Watch this. See? Which kind of tells me what? I almost want this to be, probably, I guess I'd have to be in my front view or whatever to see exactly where that needs to be. See that? Right on the axis. I just moved the bend deformer like so. Okay. I'm going to leave it in the center there. I'll just do this. Just leave it in the center to keep it simple. Now, that is a 90 bend, right? Curvature, 90. I wonder what 180 would do. Shoot. Boom. taken it and I've bent it 180 degrees, meaning 180 one side, 180 to the other, which gives me the full 360. Actually, not quite, because look down below there. Oh, if I zoom in, look at that at 180 here. Okay, so it's actually for me going to be a little bit larger than 180, which it doesn't actually let me do. Strange. Oh, yes, it does. I just have to type it. 185, let's try 184, 183, 181. So look again what we're dealing with. Remember when we duplicated the many of them and then had to get the smallest possible seam? That's what we're getting now when I'm actually adjusting the curvature value. So 180, 181 a little closer. I probably will have to get to something like 182 here to get it as close as possible. Turn on my wireframes. Okay, I'm at 181.5. You see the seam, how it's overlapping just a little? I want to get it to be right on itself. See that? So maybe that's 181. Try 181. That's too big. 181.25. That's pretty darn close right there. Happy with mine, 181.3. Yours will be different because of scale, location, all that. So you see, I have bent the curvature so that my last seam to weld is this one seam that's left. All right, so actually, I can just hit 4 on the keyboard to show you my wireframe version here, right? Because you can see it's a little bit better that this here, so the double up, is the seam where the two ends now have come and combined together, or aligned together. So now I've got my bend deformer doing all the heavy lifting here to get it into a circle. So how do I actually now weld that all up? Well, I need to, what have we done already every time we get done getting to a certain stage? No, we need to delete by type history to collapse and get rid of that bend and say, hey, I don't need to animate that bend. I don't need that bend anymore. I just use that bend nonlinear deformer to get to this shape. Right? So once we use the bend and we get it in that enough curvature shape, so we have a very, very minimal seam, we do an edit, delete by type history, and now it's back to a primitive. Again, look at the PDF. See? Change the curvature value to 1, rotate, Z. Now this one, curve value to 3.165, or in other words, the seam ends meet is minimal. Delete by type history to get rid of that bend deformer because we only used it just to bend it into shape. And now we have one last seam to merge. And that is simply a right click to choose vertex, select that seam. Right, select the seam. Back to modeling, edit mesh, merge. Play around with that threshold until it all zips up together. All right, so essentially that is the tire tutorial. Now, a lot of students are always asking, okay, what about rims, or, what if I want to make, rims on this or something along those lines? Or you want to make a stack of them, right? I could very easily come here and say, okay, you know what? Let's just rotate that a good 90. Now, all I really need to see, you guys, is the FBX, right? That's all I really need to see here. So I can come here and put tire. Play around with some offsetting. Trying to think of what was the cars. And I could have some fun here and leave one against there and just take these guys, right? Export as or export selected FBX and make my file.